My grandfather used to say, "One day, everything I built will be yours to protect." Lucas, but only if you prove worthy. The day my grandfather passed, I expected grief to unite us. Instead, it shattered us. My father and brother wore black suits and fake tears, but their eyes burned with something else: hunger. At the reading of the will, there was nothing. No letter for me, no inheritance, no recognition of years I sacrificed. It was as if my name had been erased from his life. I was Lucas, the grandson everyone said my grandfather trusted the most. He raised me like a son, molding me with his own hands, teaching me about loyalty, discipline, and the value of hard work. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I earned every scrap of respect I had, not because of my last name, but because my grandfather pushed me to stand on my own feet. For years, I did exactly that. I worked alongside him in the family business, from the lowest position upward. I swept floors, filed documents, negotiated with suppliers, even pulled all-nighters to make projects succeed. While my brother wasted his time in nightclubs and vacations, I carried the family's name on my shoulders. My grandfather saw it, admired it, and promised me the legacy. He often told me, "Lucas, when I'm gone, the company will need someone who understands blood and sweat, not someone who only knows greed." I believed him, but promises die quickly when greed poisons a family. "Grandfather wouldn't do this," I said, my voice trembling in the lawyer's office. But my father smirked, that cold smile he always wore when he knew he'd won. "Maybe you weren't as special as you thought, Lucas. Maybe you were just his errand boy." My brother chuckled beside him. "Guess all that hard work was for nothing." Their words pierced deeper than any knife. I sat frozen, my mind spinning. Something was wrong. I remembered too clearly my grandfather's eyes when he spoke to me, the firmness of his voice when he promised me the company, the inheritance, the future. He wouldn't betray me, not him. But as the papers passed from hand to hand, there was no mention of me. It was all gone, everything I had built my life around. The weeks that followed blurred into misery. My father moved fast, seizing control of the company, stripping me of every title I had earned. My brother strutted into the CEO's chair like a child trying on clothes too big for him, flaunting wealth that wasn't his. I was shoved out, left to watch them dismantle everything my grandfather had spent his life creating. For a moment I couldn't move. It felt like I was holding his voice, his last breath, his trust. My fingers dug into the paper, ready to tear it open, when a noise outside snapped me back. A car door slammed. I crept to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough. A black sedan idled across the street. Two men inside, silhouettes barely moving, watching. My chest tightened. Connor had been right. I stepped away from the window, clutching the envelope. If they saw me open it here, I was finished. I stuffed it under a loose floorboard where I kept what little cash I had left. Then I turned off the lights and sat in darkness, listening, waiting. The car didn't leave. Hours passed, my eyes heavy, but I refused to sleep. At dawn, the engine finally growled to life and disappeared down the street. Exhausted but determined, I pulled the envelope from its hiding place. With trembling hands, I broke the seal. Inside was a stack of papers, aged and worn, along with a small flash drive. My throat tightened as I recognized my grandfather's handwriting scrawled across the top page. "For Lucas, the truth they will try to bury." I unfolded the letter. His words spilled across the page, shaky but strong. "Lucas, if you are reading this, I am gone. But know this, my love for you never wavered. I entrusted the company to you, not your father, not your brother. The official will is hidden, sealed with my lawyer outside this country. Your father knew of it, and he has tried to destroy every trace. But he cannot erase the truth. He cannot erase you." My vision blurred. He hadn't lied. He hadn't abandoned me. I turned to the next page. It listed accounts, transactions, evidence of corruption, siphoned money, bribes. My father's name was everywhere. My brother's too. They hadn't just stolen my legacy, they had bled the company dry. My hands shook as I picked up the flash drive. I rushed to my laptop and plugged it in. Folders opened, hundreds of files, recordings, scanned documents. And then I saw it, a video file, labeled with the date just weeks before my grandfather's death. I clicked. His face appeared on the screen, older, frailer, but his eyes still sharp. He looked straight into the camera. "Lucas," he said, his voice low but steady, "if you're watching this, they've succeeded in shutting you out. Your father, your brother, they will stop at nothing to take everything. But the company, the empire, it was always meant for you. I raised you for it. I prepared you for it. They are not builders, Lucas. They are destroyers. And they will drag everything into the ground if you don't stop them." My breath caught as he leaned closer, his voice fierce despite his weakness. "I left you proof. I left you power. Use it wisely. But be careful. If they know you have this, they won't hesitate to kill you." The screen went black. My chest heaved. My grandfather had known. He had seen it coming. And he had trusted me to fight back. But before I could gather my thoughts, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Lucas." The voice was deep, unfamiliar. "We know what you have. Hand it over and you live. Keep it and you'll wish you hadn't." The line went dead. I froze, the phone slipping from my hand. They already knew. My blood turned cold as I heard a sound outside, the crunch of footsteps on gravel. I lunged for the floorboard, shoving the envelope and flash drive back inside, covering it quickly. My heart thundered as the front door rattled. Someone was trying to get in. The lock clicked once, twice. I grabbed the nearest object, a broken chair leg, and stood ready, my breath sharp, my muscles tensed. The door burst open. Shadows poured inside. And just as I raised my weapon, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Lucas, stop! It's me, Connor." Behind him, two men lay unconscious on the ground outside. The black sedan parked crooked against the curb. He slammed the door shut, his eyes burning into mine. "They're moving faster than I thought," he said, his voice urgent. "You don't have much time. If you want to survive and if you want to take back what's yours, you need to leave now." My grip tightened on the chair leg, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Leave? Go where? Who could I trust?" And yet, as Connor's gaze locked on mine, I knew one thing. The fight for my grandfather's legacy had only just begun. But I didn't know then that the next move would cost me more than I could ever imagine. The letter sat on my kitchen table, the paper yellowed and fragile, yet it carried more weight than any document I had ever held in my life. I had stared at the strange underlined words for hours. Trust no one. Ledger. The oak. Key. At first they felt random, scattered like broken glass. But the longer I looked, the sharper they cut into me. My grandfather had always taught me that nothing in life was accidental. Not his words, not his lessons, not his promises. If he underlined these specific words, it meant something deliberate. I rubbed my eyes, exhausted. The dim light of my apartment buzzing faintly above me. My world had already collapsed when I was erased from his will. But now, with this letter in front of me, I realized that collapse wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something else. A secret. A truth so dangerous that my father and brother wanted it buried. My hands trembled as I pulled the envelope closer again, rereading every line. My grandfather's voice seemed to echo in my head with each word. "Lucas, if you're reading this, it means I am gone. But remember, I would never leave you with nothing. I left you with more than money, more than power. I left you with the truth. Look where the oak stands tallest. Beneath it, the ledger waits. Guard it with your life. Trust no one, not even family. The key will find you when you are ready." I sat back in my chair, staring blankly at the peeling paint on the wall. The oak. There had been an oak tree on my grandfather's estate, massive and ancient, its roots deeper than any other tree I'd ever seen. He used to take me there as a boy, telling me that trees like that survived because their foundations were stronger than storms. I whispered to myself, that's it. It has to be, but fear clawed at me. If this letter had reached me, it meant Connor, the stranger who delivered it, wasn't lying. My father and brother had wanted it destroyed, which also meant they knew something was hidden. If they had even the faintest suspicion about the oak, they would have already looked. Unless they didn't know how. The thought jolted me with hope. Maybe the oak still held what my grandfather left behind. Maybe it hadn't been found. My pulse quickened. I couldn't waste time. It was past midnight when I reached the old estate. The gates were locked, heavy chains wrapped around them, but the fence was nothing I couldn't climb. I scaled it quickly, my hands gripping the cold iron, my breath heavy in the night air. The property looked different without my grandfather's presence. Empty, hollow, almost haunted. The oak tree stood at the far end of the grounds, its branches stretching wide, silhouetted against the moonlight. My boots crunched softly against the grass as I approached, each step filled with both dread and determination. Memories swarmed me. I remembered sitting under this tree as a child, listening to my grandfather's stories. I remembered carving my initials into its bark when I was 12. I remembered him patting my shoulder, saying, "This tree will outlive us all, Lucas, but what matters is what you leave behind for those who come after." My throat tightened. He had meant more than I realized. I dropped to my knees at the base of the trunk, brushing away leaves, dirt, anything that might cover what I was searching for. My fingers scraped against roots, rough and unyielding. Nothing. Frustration burned through me. I circled the tree, digging with my hands, searching for some sign, a box, a compartment, anything. My nails cracked against stone, my palms raw. Still nothing. And then I remembered. "The word key," he said. "The key will find you when you are ready." I froze. What if I wasn't supposed to open it yet? What if I needed something more? But then my fingers brushed against something odd, a metal edge sticking out between two thick roots. My heart leapt. I clawed at the soil, pulling it free. It was a small iron box, rusted but intact, no bigger than a book. A heavy lock sealed it shut. My breath caught. The ledger. I hugged the box to my chest, adrenaline surging. I didn't know what it contained. But I knew one thing. My grandfather's entire legacy was in my arms. And then I heard it. A twig snapping. I froze, turning slowly. From the shadows near the tree line, a figure stepped forward. The moonlight caught his face. My brother. He smirked, his voice low and venomous. "Well, well. Looks like little Lucas found himself a toy." My chest tightened. "You shouldn't be here." He laughed, stepping closer, his eyes locked on the box in my hands. "Oh, but I should. You really think you're the only one grandfather whispered secrets to? You really think we didn't know he left something behind?" Rage surged through me. "If you knew, then why wasn't it yours? Why didn't he trust you?" His smile faltered, his jaw tightening. "Because he was a fool, always blinded by you. But it doesn't matter now. You're weak, Lucas, always were. And that," he pointed to the box, "belongs to me." He lunged. I stumbled back, clutching the box tighter, my back hitting the oak. His hand grabbed at my arm, trying to pry it free. We struggled, our breaths harsh, our bodies colliding in the dirt. "Give it to me!" he snarled, his fingers clawing at the lock. "No!" I shouted, shoving him hard. He staggered, but only for a moment before charging again. We crashed to the ground, rolling in the soil, fists flying. My knuckles split against his jaw, his elbow slammed into my ribs. Pain exploded through me, but I refused to let go. The box was mine. It was all I had left of my grandfather, of the truth. Finally, with a desperate surge of strength, I shoved him off me and scrambled to my feet, clutching the box to my chest. "Stay away from me," I hissed, my chest heaving. But he only laughed, wiping blood from his lip. "Run all you want, Lucas. You can't hide forever." "Father already knows. He'll make sure you lose everything again. And this time, he won't just erase you. He'll bury you." His words echoed in the cold night air as I backed away, my heart hammering. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and ran, the box heavy in my arms, my brother's laughter chasing me into the darkness. Back in my apartment, I set the box on the table, my body aching, my hands trembling. The lock mocked me, unbreakable. The ledger was inside, I could feel it, but the key was missing. My brother's words replayed in my head. "Father already knows." That meant they were hunting me, watching me. I stared at the box, my reflection faint in its rusted surface. My grandfather had trusted me with this. He had believed in me when no one else did. I couldn't fail him now, but I also knew one thing with chilling certainty. If I kept this box in my apartment, I wouldn't survive the week. A noise outside my window made me flinch. A car idled in the street, headlights dim. My chest tightened. Were they already here? I grabbed the box, shoving it into a backpack, my mind racing. I didn't know where to go, who to trust. But I knew this. I couldn't stop now. I had come too far. Somewhere out there was the key. Somewhere out there was the truth. And I would find it, even if it killed me. As Lucas stepped into the night with the box strapped to his back, his phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "You're not safe in your apartment. They know. Meet me at the old train yard midnight. I have the key." His blood ran cold. Someone else knew. But was it Connor or a trap? The message glared back at me from the cracked phone screen. "You're not safe in your apartment. They know. Meet me at the old train yard midnight. I have the key." For a long moment I couldn't breathe. The words blurred and sharpened again as if my eyes couldn't accept them. My apartment was barely 4 walls and a ceiling, but it was all I had left. Now the screen was telling me even that was gone. I read the message again, and then again. My hands trembled. Who sent it? Was it Connor? The same man who had pressed my grandfather's envelope into my hands and told me not to trust anyone? Or was it one of my father's men, playing me like a fish on a line? My mind spun. My father had money, power, people everywhere. He could pay off half the city to watch me, follow me, trap me. If I stepped outside, I could be walking into his cage. But if I stayed, the walls of this apartment might become my coffin. The air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. I moved to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch. The street below was too quiet. A car idled at the curb, its engine purring. The outline of a man sat in the driver's seat, unmoving. Across the road, another shadow leaned against a lamppost, head bent as if checking a phone but never really moving. They were here, watching. The phone vibrated again in my hand. Don't think. Leave now. Third freight car. I shut my eyes tight. My grandfather's voice seemed to whisper from the past. Lucas, the moment you hesitate will be the moment they take everything. I yanked on my jacket, shoved the iron box into my backpack, and slung it across my shoulders. The straps dug into me, heavy, like the weight of my entire bloodline was strapped to my spine. I stuffed the phone in my pocket and opened the door. The hallway outside smelled of mildew and dust. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a scream. My legs wanted to run, but I forced myself to walk steady, quiet, controlled. At the stairwell, I paused and listened. A cough echoed from below, then a shuffle of feet. They were in the building. I turned and bolted upward instead of down. The rooftop door was rusted, but I shoved it open and climbed into the night air. The city spread before me, neon lights buzzing, puddles reflecting broken halos. The rain had stopped, but the scent of it clung to the air. The car outside was still there, the man still leaning by the lamppost. They hadn't seen me yet. I crouched low, sprinted across the rooftop, and leapt to the next building. My shoes splashed against wet tar, and pain shot up my knees, but I kept moving. Another roof. Another. My chest burned, but adrenaline dragged me forward until I reached the alley 2 blocks away. Only then did I dare drop down, landing hard on my shoulder. The backpack thudded against me, and I hissed in pain, but I didn't stop. I slipped into the shadows, weaving between trash bins and rusting fire escapes until the street opened wide before me. The old train yard waited beyond the horizon, silent, forgotten. By the time I reached it, the city's noise had faded behind me. The place looked like a graveyard of steel. Rusted tracks cut across cracked concrete. Grass and weeds forced their way between them, nature reclaiming what greed had abandoned. The skeletal hulks of freight cars loomed in rows, their paint peeling, graffiti scrawled across their sides. A cold wind whistled through the gaps, carrying the stench of oil and rust. The silence pressed down heavy, broken only by the metallic groan of a loose sheet of siding flapping in the breeze. My phone buzzed once more. I see you. 3rd freight car, alone. My pulse thundered in my ears. I tightened my grip on the straps of my backpack and stepped forward. The crunch of gravel beneath my boots sounded too loud, like I was announcing myself to the whole world. My shadow stretched across the cracked ground under the dim moonlight. The 3rd freight car loomed ahead. Its door slid half open, darkness yawning inside. "Lucas," the voice came from the shadows behind it. I spun around, my heart hammering. A man stepped into the light, tall, coat pulled tight, his hat brim low. For a breathless second, I was sure it was another trap. But then he lifted his face. Connor. Relief crashed over me like a wave. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him. Lines etched deeper into his face, his eyes sharper. But the same calm steel lived in his gaze. "You shouldn't have come here alone," he said quietly. "They're closing in." I took a step forward, suspicion and relief colliding inside me. "It was you who sent the messages?" He nodded once. "Yes, and it may already be too late." I pulled the backpack from my shoulders and slid out the iron box. Even in the pale light, the metal gleamed darkly, heavy with secrets. Connor's eyes flickered as he saw it. Fear, awe, something close to reverence. "Good," he murmured. "You kept it safe. Your grandfather would be proud." My throat tightened. "Then tell me the truth. What is this? Why did he hide it? Why didn't he give it to me before he died?" Connor glanced around the yard, his shoulders taut. "Because he knew your father would kill for it. And he knew you weren't ready. He hoped time would harden you. But now, Lucas, you don't have the luxury of waiting. What's inside this box isn't just property or money, it's everything. A map of his empire, a record of every ally, every betrayal, every secret deal. It's not just inheritance, it's a weapon." His words sliced through me. My father had taken everything from me, my name, my position, my future. But here, in my hands, was the power to take it back. Connor reached into his coat and pulled something out. My breath caught. A key, old bronze, its surface worn smooth by years, its teeth carved with care. "This belonged to your grandfather," Connor said, placing it in my palm. "He gave it to me with one command. When Lucas is ready, give him the key. And now the time has come." The metal felt heavy in my hand. My pulse raced. "What if I'm not ready?" I whispered. Connor's eyes softened for the first time. "Then you'll die without ever knowing who you are." Before I could answer, headlights flared at the edge of the yard. We both froze. The roar of an engine shattered the silence. A black SUV skidded into the open lot. Tires screeching, beams cutting through the shadows. Doors flung open and men spilled out. Dark suits, masks, weapons glinting. My blood turned to ice. My father's men. "Run!" Connor barked, shoving me behind the freight car as he pulled a pistol from his coat. Gunfire erupted instantly, deafening in the stillness. Bullets sparked against steel, ricocheted off the tracks, tore chunks from the freight car's rusting frame. I clutched the box to my chest, the key digging into my palm, and scrambled into the maze of cars, my heart hammered, lungs burning. The night exploded with chaos, shouts, shots, the ring of metal. "Lucas!" one of the men roared. His voice was filled with venom. "Give it up! You can't run forever." I stumbled over weeds clawing through the concrete, nearly dropping the box. Every step felt slower, heavier, like the earth itself wanted to hold me down. Connor's gun cracked again and again, his voice shouting, "Keep moving! Don't let them take it." I ducked behind another freight car, pressing my back against its cold steel. The air reeked of oil and smoke. My breaths came ragged, shallow. I dared to glance back. Connor stood in the open, firing with calm precision, his coat whipping in the wind. 3 men advanced on him, guns raised. He moved like a soldier, each shot deliberate, each step steady. But there were too many. I wanted to run back, to fight with him. But my grandfather's words echoed in my mind. Guard it with your life. Trust no one. My grip on the box tightened. My legs moved on their own. I sprinted for the far fence, weaving between shadows, bullets sparking around me. "Lucas!" Connor's voice tore through the night. "Go!" I made it halfway when the scream came. It wasn't mine. I turned just in time to see Connor fall. His body crumpled beside the freight car, his gun slipping from his hand, his blood staining the cracked concrete. "Connor!" My voice broke, raw and desperate. But then a blinding spotlight washed over me. I froze, caught in its glare. Figures moved closer, shadows growing larger, footsteps pounding. I had seconds. Stay and die with him, or run and protect the truth. Tears burned my eyes, but my legs knew the answer. With a cry that felt like it ripped me in half, I turned and sprinted. The fence loomed ahead. I slipped through a narrow gap, metal scraping my arms, the box bruising against my chest. The night swallowed me whole. I didn't stop running until my lungs screamed and my legs collapsed beneath me in a dark, forgotten alley miles away. I fell to my knees, clutching the box, the key still locked in my fist. Connor was gone, and now I was utterly alone. I leaned against the wall, trembling, my body broken but alive. The iron box pressed heavy in my lap. For the first time I had the key. For the first time I could open it. But before I could move, my phone buzzed again. A new message. "Lucas, I know you have the ledger. If you open it, your mother dies." I leaned against the wall, trembling, my body broken but alive. The iron box pressed heavy in my lap. For the first time I had the key. For the first time I could open it. But before I could move, my phone buzzed again. A new message. "Lucas, I know you have the ledger. If you open it, your mother dies." The words cut deeper than any bullet could. I read them once, twice, 3 times. Each repetition tightening a noose around my chest. My mother. She was the one thread of softness left in my life. The one person untouched by the poison of my father's empire. She had never cared for money or legacy. She cared for family, for love. She was the reason I had endured the humiliation, the betrayal, the endless nights in a dark apartment. And now they had her. The phone vibrated again. "You think you can run from blood, Lucas? Every step you take, every secret you chase, we see you. We own you. Midnight tomorrow. The pier. Bring the box. Come alone." Fail, and she dies screaming. The message was unsigned, but I didn't need a name. The stench of my father was all over it. He had made his move. For a long time I sat there in the alley, my body trembling, my mind torn in two. Opened the box and I risked her life. Ignore the message and she was dead anyway. Bring the box and I might as well hand him the kingdom he had stolen. The city around me hummed with indifference. Somewhere a siren wailed. Somewhere a drunk laughed. Somewhere life went on while mine was bleeding out. I pressed the phone to my forehead, fighting tears that clawed at the back of my eyes. I couldn't break, not now. My grandfather had trusted me with this legacy, but my mother had trusted me with something far greater. Her heart. I had to save her. But to save her, I needed answers. And the only answers were locked inside this cursed box. I staggered to my feet, the box cradled in one arm, the key in my other hand. The alley swayed around me, my muscles screaming from the night's chase. But I moved, step after step, like a machine programmed for survival. The city blurred into shadows until I found myself at the edge of an abandoned church. Its windows were shattered, its doors rotting, its steeple cracked like a broken tooth, yet the place called to me. It was empty, silent, and hidden, exactly what I needed. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Inside, moonlight spilled through holes in the roof, dust dancing in the beams like restless ghosts. The pews lay broken, the altar crumbled. I placed the box on the cracked stone floor, the sound echoing in the hollow space. My hand shook as I lifted the key. The metal was cold, almost alive, as if it remembered all the hands it had passed through before mine. I slid it into the lock. It fit perfectly. My breath caught. I turned it. The mechanism clicked. The lid creaked open. Inside, a velvet lining cradled a thick leather-bound ledger, its cover worn but unbroken. A seal stamped with my grandfather's initials still clung to the strap that bound it shut. Beneath it lay photographs, yellowed letters, and something else. A pistol, sleek and black. The initials LD engraved on the grip. I touched the ledger first. My fingers trembled as I undid the strap and opened it. The pages were filled with names, thousands of them. Business partners, politicians, contractors, even enemies. Notes were scribbled in my grandfather's hand. Loyal, corruptible, dangerous, never trust. Dates, transactions, coded messages, even bank account numbers sprawled across the pages. It wasn't just a record, it was a map of power. And hidden within its pages were things darker still, references to deaths that were no accidents, companies toppled through sabotage, rivals ruined by scandal that had been manufactured. My grandfather had built his empire not just with sweat, but with blood and shadows. I felt sick. Yet as I turned the pages, I saw something else, my name, not once but many times. Each entry was different. Lucas proved loyalty. Lucas shielded assets. Lucas seized truth. And then the final line, written just weeks before his death. Lucas is the only one who can carry this. If he fails, the empire will consume itself. My throat closed. My grandfather had not betrayed me. He had chosen me. He had built this book as both shield and sword, leaving me the only weapon that could cut down my father. But then I turned another page, and my blood froze. A photograph was tucked inside my mother, her arms wrapped around me when I was just a boy, both of us smiling, her eyes soft with pride. Beneath it was a single line in my grandfather's hand. Protect her above all. The ledger blurred as rage boiled in my chest. My father had taken everything, my future, my name, my dignity, and now he threatened the one person my grandfather had sworn must be safe. I slammed the book shut, shoving it back into the box. My hands gripped the pistol, its cold weight strangely comforting. Tomorrow, I whispered, my voice shaking but sharp. He won't see me as the errand boy anymore. The night crawled by. I found no sleep, only the endless replay of Connor's death. The weight of the ledger, the image of my mother's smile. Each second hammered the same truth deeper into me. I couldn't simply walk into the pier and hand over the box. That was suicide. But if I went in unprepared, my mother was as good as dead. So I prepared. I studied the ledger until dawn, memorizing names that could become allies, debts that could be called in. I searched the old church for supplies. Finding a broken bottle I fashioned into a blade, metal rods I tied together with strips of cloth, improvised weapons crude but mine. By morning, the fear inside me had hardened into resolve. My father thought I was weak, broken, erased. Tomorrow, he would learn the truth. The day passed in a haze. I moved like a ghost through the city, watching, listening, planning. Every shadow could be one of his men, every face a spy. But no matter how hard they watched, they couldn't see what was growing inside me. By nightfall, I was at the edge of the pier. The air was thick with salt and oil. Waves slapped against rotting wood. Cranes loomed like giant skeletons above stacks of forgotten containers. The place reeked of death, even without a body in sight. I clutched the box in one hand, the pistol hidden in my jacket. My heart pounded, but my face was stone. From the darkness, a voice rose. Well, well, my lost son returns. My father stepped into the light. His suit was immaculate, his tie perfect, his smile sharp as a blade. Behind him stood half a dozen men, all armed, all watching me with predator's eyes. And there, bound to a chair, gagged, her eyes wide with terror, was my mother. "Mom!" The word tore from me before I could stop it. Her muffled cry reached for me, her body straining against the ropes. My father's smirk widened. Touching, truly touching. You see, Lucas, I always knew sentiment would be your weakness. You could have walked away. You could have let me build this empire without you. But no, you had to chase ghosts, dig up things best buried. And now here we are. His eyes flicked to the box in my hands. Give it to me, or she dies. Every muscle in my body screamed to hand it over, to save her. But my grandfather's words burned in my mind. Protect her above all. And I realized it didn't mean protect her by surrendering. It meant protect her by ending this. I tightened my grip on the pistol hidden in my coat. And then the world exploded. Gunfire erupted from the shadows, not at me, not at my mother, but at my father's men. Bullets ripped through the air, screams echoed, and chaos swallowed the pier. Figures stormed out of the darkness, masked, armed, moving with precision. They weren't my father's men. They weren't mine. They were someone else. My father's eyes widened, his smirk faltering for the first time. I ducked, dragging the box close, my mind racing. Who were they? What did they want? And then, above the roar of gunfire, I heard a voice, steady, commanding, terrifyingly familiar. Secure the box. Kill the rest. I froze. That voice. It couldn't be. It was the voice of the one man I thought I could still trust. Connor, alive. The pier dissolved into chaos. Bullets flying, my father shouting orders, my mother screaming behind her gag. And through it all, Connor's voice echoed like a nightmare reborn. I stared into the smoke and shadows, the iron box clutched against my chest, my world tilting on its axis. Connor had saved me. Connor had betrayed me. And now I didn't know which was true. I stared into the smoke and shadows, the iron box clutched against my chest, my world tilting on its axis. Connor had saved me. Connor had betrayed me. And now I didn't know which was true. The gunfire didn't just echo, it screamed through the pier, rattling the wooden beams beneath my feet, shaking the air with its ferocity. Each shot tore through the night, sharp and deafening, making my ears ring. The acrid smell of gunpowder mingled with the tang of salt and the briny mist from the water below. My pulse raced, hammering in my ears, matching the chaotic rhythm of the firefight. My hands gripped the iron box as if it were a lifeline to some fragile tether of sanity. I glanced at my mother, tied to a chair, gagged, her eyes wide and unblinking, reflecting both fear and desperate hope. She had always been my anchor, even in my darkest moments. Now she was helpless, and I was the only one who could save her. Connor moved like a specter, His steps silent, precise. Bullets zinged past him, ricocheting off crates and beams, but he didn't falter. Every movement he made seemed premeditated, flawless, almost too perfect, and it unnerved me. There was a coldness in him now, something I hadn't seen before. Was he helping me, or was he leading us into a trap I didn't yet understand? Time slowed as I assessed my options. The iron box in my arms wasn't just metal and paper. It was a symbol, a weapon, and a burden all at once. Inside were the secrets my grandfather had entrusted to me, the leverage I needed to reclaim my life and our family's legacy. But using it wrong could cost us everything. My mother, the ledger, my chance at justice. A shadow moved in my peripheral vision. My father, stepping out from behind a stack of crates, his face twisted in fury. He held a gun steady, aimed directly at me. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You think you can escape me, Lucas?" he snarled. "After everything I've built, you think you can just walk away?" I froze, the weight of his gaze pressing down on me. My mother clutched my arm instinctively, trembling, her eyes locked on my father's face. Connor was nearby, gun raised, but his hesitation was unmistakable. For a moment, I wondered if I had misjudged him. Then the world narrowed to a single thought: protect my mother, survive, and get the box to safety. I swung the box toward my father with all the strength I could muster. The iron collided with his chest with a sickening thud, throwing him back a step. The gun wavered, a few shots misfiring into the shadows, splinters flying. My mother gasped, untying herself with fumbling hands, desperate, urgent. "Run!" I screamed, my voice raw, echoing over the chaos. She didn't hesitate. She bolted, stumbling slightly, and I followed, sprinting across the pier with bullets whizzing around us. Each step felt like running through a storm of fire. My chest burning, legs aching, lungs screaming for air. The smell of salt water and gunpowder mixed with the metallic tang of adrenaline, heightening every sense. Connor's presence was both reassurance and threat. He was there, disabling my father's men. Yet every glance he threw in my direction was unreadable. Was he protecting us, or setting us up for some greater plan I couldn't yet see? I couldn't afford to think about it. The immediate danger demanded all my focus. We reached the end of the pier. Below, waves crashed violently against jagged rocks, spuming white and frothing. The drop was risky, but it was our only chance. I grabbed my mother's hand, tightening my grip, and we leapt together, plunging into the icy, merciless water. The cold shocked my body, stealing my breath. My lungs burned, my muscles cramped. But I kicked and clawed toward the jagged shore, keeping my mother afloat. She shivered violently, her grip on me unrelenting, but I held her, determined. Behind us, the chaos of the pier continued. Shouts, gunfire, the sound of splintering wood, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to fade. Finally, we reached the rocks. We hauled ourselves onto solid ground, soaked, shivering, exhausted beyond comprehension. I pressed my mother to my chest, feeling the tremor in her body, feeling the raw, jagged edges of fear and relief intertwine. Connor appeared briefly on the pier's edge, a shadow among shadows. He raised his hand, almost as if acknowledging something unsaid, then vanished into the night. I wanted to run after him, to demand answers. But instinct told me this wasn't the time. I sank to my knees, my chest heaving, mind spinning. My mother's voice trembled as she whispered, Who was that?" I don't know," I admitted, the words tasting bitter. I think it was Connor." Her eyes widened, disbelief mingling with confusion. "Connor? But he's your friend, isn't he?" The one who gave you the envelope." I shook my head, unable to meet her gaze. "I don't know anymore. I don't know what he wants. He saved us, but he's not acting like the man I thought I knew." The night wrapped around us like a shroud. Waves crashed against the rocks, their rhythmic pounding a reminder of how small and fragile we were. I had never felt so exposed. so acutely aware of the dangers lurking in every shadow. My grandfather's words echoed faintly in my mind. Trust must be earned. Lucas, never assume loyalty by appearances. The following days were a blur of calculated moves and sleepless nights. I relocated my mother to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. A place I could defend, a place I could control. Every crate, every corner, every shadow was mapped in my mind. I set traps, scouted perimeters, and kept a constant watch. We couldn't afford any mistakes. The ledger sat open on a battered table, every page a revelation. I traced transactions, decoded hidden notes, and discovered patterns in the financial web my grandfather had left behind. Political figures, business partners, shadow contractors, every name, every number. Every coded symbol was a thread in a tapestry of power and deceit. If I played my cards right, I could use this information to bring my father down. But I needed more. Connor's absence gnawed at me. Was he observing us, waiting for the right moment to strike? Or had he truly vanished? The uncertainty made every decision heavier, more dangerous. Then, late one night, hunched over the ledger by the dim light of a flickering lamp, I found it, a small, nearly imperceptible notation in the margin of a page about offshore accounts. My grandfather's handwriting was precise, urgent. Vault, key inside box. Trust Lucas to see. My heart raced. A vault. A hidden repository. Untouched, undiscovered. I pored over the ledger, cross-referencing entries, piecing together the location. An abandoned safe house in the industrial district. Dates, coordinates, cryptic instructions. Open only when the enemy is blind. The plan crystallized in my mind. The vault, the iron box, the ledger, they were pieces of a puzzle. If I could reach the vault, I could secure leverage strong enough to confront my father, expose his corruption, and reclaim what was mine. But the path was perilous. Leaving the warehouse meant leaving my mother exposed, walking into danger without backup, with enemies everywhere. And Connor, his loyalty remained uncertain. Every night I mapped escape routes, studied patrol patterns, memorized schedules. Every movement was deliberate, precise. My grandfather's lessons on strategy, patience, and foresight guided me. Every night I whispered to myself, I can do this. I have to. The ledger vibrated with potential. Every entry, every hidden code, every name was a piece of the truth. I could feel it, almost alive, as if my grandfather's spirit lingered in those pages, guiding me, warning me. And then it happened. As I stepped outside that night to scout a potential route to the vault, I sensed a presence, a shadow moving with deliberate slowness, silent, measured. My body froze. My eyes darted through the darkness. A single figure, cloaked in black, emerged from the shadows behind the warehouse. One hand rested on a silenced pistol, the other tucked discreetly in a coat pocket. My breath caught in my throat. Connor. The chill ran down my spine. His voice, low, deliberate, impossible to ignore, cut through the night air. Lucas, you're walking into my trap. The world tilted. Every plan, every strategy, every ounce of preparation I had made suddenly felt fragile, precarious. I realized in that moment that the real game, the true test of trust, loyalty and survival was only just beginning. Lucas must decide instantly. Confront Connor, risk walking into the trap, or retreat and risk losing the vault forever. The shadows around him are alive with threats, and every heartbeat brings the enemy closer. I stood there in the shadowed alley, the envelope heavy in my hands, heart pounding so violently I thought it might burst through my chest. Every sound around me seemed sharper, the distant wail of sirens, the occasional shuffle of boots on wet pavement. Even my own breathing felt like an alarm. Connor's warning echoed in my mind. Your father and brother will do anything to keep you from the truth. They already suspect. Trust no one. I had no choice now. The city felt suddenly unfamiliar, menacing in its quiet, its silence and accusation. Each flickering streetlight seemed to spotlight me, a lone figure standing between the comfort of ignorance and the dangerous path of revelation. I took a deep breath and reminded myself, this wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice, about reclaiming what my grandfather had entrusted to me. The envelope burned in my jacket pocket, a tangible weight of the truth, the promise of vindication. I had barely slept in the days since meeting Connor, consumed by questions. What exactly had my grandfather hidden? How far had my father gone to erase me from his plans? And more importantly, what would happen if I was discovered? I returned to my apartment, each step calculated, cautious. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, every creak of the floor under my feet magnified, every shadow stretching like fingers trying to grab me. I locked the door behind me, double-checked the windows, and pulled the curtains tight. Only then did I allow myself a moment to breathe, to glance at the envelope as if seeing it anew. I placed it on the kitchen table, its surface cold and unwelcoming, and sat across from it. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over the wax seal. For a moment I remembered my grandfather's hands, calloused, steady, filled with an unshakable certainty. I had spent years trying to emulate him, and now, in the face of total betrayal, I felt both closer and further away from him than ever. I broke the seal carefully, almost reverently, and opened the envelope. Inside lay 3 items: a copy of a will, a handwritten letter, and a USB drive. Each felt heavier than the last, the weight of my grandfather's last words pressing down on me. The will was meticulous, legalese carefully typed, every line precise, bearing my grandfather's signature and notary marks. It was clear, the entirety of the family company, the assets, the properties, everything, had been intended for me. The letter, penned in his strong but trembling hand, read like a whisper from beyond the grave. Lucas, if you are reading this, it means the world has turned against you. Trust only those who have proven themselves in the fires of loyalty. They will come for you, but remember this, I believe in you. The company, the legacy, and the truth are yours to protect. Do not falter. And then the USB drive. I hesitated before plugging it in. The screen flickered to life, and my grandfather's voice filled the room. Frail but firm, resolute. Lucas, if you hear this, you must know the fight is far from over. Norman Pierce is not trustworthy. Your father and brother may attempt to destroy the legacy I built. Find Connor. Trust him. He is the key to unlocking the truth. Be careful. Be vigilant. I slumped back, the words sinking into every fiber of my being. For a moment, I felt an overwhelming mix of despair and determination. I had been stripped of everything: my name, my place, my life's work, but this was proof. Proof that my grandfather had left a path for me, and now it was my responsibility to follow it. I knew I couldn't do this alone. Connor had warned me. My father would stop at nothing. The man who had raised me, whose hands had built the company from nothing, had intended for me to see this truth, and I would honor him. I called Connor's number, heart racing, voice low. He answered after the 3rd ring. Lucas, he said, relief and caution mixed in his tone. I've been waiting. I told him everything. Connor listened, silent, nodding occasionally, then gave me instructions. There are people watching. They've been watching since the day your grandfather died. Every move you make must be calculated. We'll meet at the old warehouse near the docks, midnight. Bring nothing but your wits in the envelope. I ended the call, feeling the first flicker of hope I had in months. I couldn't trust anyone else. Not my father, not my brother. Not even the employees I had once considered friends. Every step I took would be into a minefield of betrayal, greed, and danger. But this was my chance, my one opportunity to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The hours crawled. I paced my apartment, thinking through every possible scenario. I recalled every conversation, every interaction with my father and Brandon, every subtle indication that something was off. Now it all made sense. The blacklisting, the whispers, the subtle undermining of my reputation. It had been a coordinated effort to isolate me, to weaken me before the true battle began. When the clock finally struck 11, I slipped into my jacket, checking that the envelope was secure. The streets were slick with rain, the city shimmering in reflection under the lamplight. Each shadow seemed a potential threat, every passing car a possible surveillance tool. But I pressed forward, determination overriding fear. At the docks, the warehouse loomed like a monolith, silent and imposing. I approached cautiously, eyes scanning for movement. A figure emerged from the shadows. Connor. He was older, weathered, but his posture carried the same unyielding strength I remembered from my grandfather's stories. "You have it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I handed him the envelope. He nodded, then gestured for me to follow. Inside, crates and machinery created a labyrinth of cover and concealment. Connor led me to a small office, walls lined with old maps and blueprints. "This is where we plan," he said. "Here we are safe. For now." I exhaled, trying to calm the storm inside me. We spread the documents across the table. Connor examined them carefully. "Norman Pierce is connected deeper than you know," he said. "He didn't just serve your father. He's been manipulating the company, hiding assets, diverting funds. If we want to reclaim what's yours, we need proof." Hours passed as we pieced together fragments, emails, bank statements, notes I hadn't considered significant. Each clue painted a clearer picture of my father's betrayal, of Brandon's complicity, and of Norman's calculated deception. By the time dawn approached, we had a plan. Not just to reclaim the company, but to expose the truth to the world, to reveal the depth of corruption that had stolen my life. But it wasn't simple. The opposition was powerful, ruthless, and well-connected. Every move had to be precise. "Lucas," Connor said, eyes locking with mine, "tomorrow we begin. The first step is infiltration. You'll need to enter the company's private archives. There's a safe there, one that only your grandfather and Norman knew about. Inside are documents that can turn the tide, but it's heavily guarded. Cameras, security codes. We'll need to be ghosts." I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle firmly on my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of purpose, a fire rekindled. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the legacy of a man who had given me everything, for the truth that had been buried, and for justice that had been denied. The night before our operation, sleep eluded me. Every sound outside my window seemed amplified, every shadow a threat. I reviewed the plan repeatedly, memorizing the layout, the timing, the contingencies. The envelope sat on the table, a constant reminder of the stakes. Midnight arrived and we moved. The city was silent, every step calculated. The warehouse behind us, the streets empty. We approached the company's main building. I felt a mixture of adrenaline and fear, knowing that discovery meant ruin or worse. Connor signaled me to follow as we slipped past security measures, using codes and knowledge gleaned from months of observation. Every second stretched endlessly, each hallway echoing with potential danger. Finally, we reached the private archive. The safe loomed before me, cold metal against my hands. I felt the weight of my grandfather's faith pressing down, the culmination of years of mentorship, trust, and love. Connor whispered, "This is it, Lucas. The truth lies behind that door." I placed the envelope on the floor, took a deep breath, and entered the combination. The lock clicked. Slowly, deliberately, I opened the safe. Inside were stacks of documents, files labeled with dates, names, transactions. Each page revealed secrets, embezzlement, falsified reports, hidden bank accounts, all pointing to the orchestrated effort by my father and Norman to usurp the company and erase me from history. As I sifted through the documents, a sudden noise behind me froze me. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, too close. I spun around. Shadows moved in the doorway. Connor was tense, hand on his weapon. And then a voice I never wanted to hear again cut through the silence. Lucas. My father's silhouette filled the doorway, and behind him, Brandon smirking, arms crossed. The room became a trap. The documents, the safe, the very truth I had fought to uncover, all hanging by a thread. And in that moment, I realized the fight for everything I loved had just entered its deadliest phase. Because they weren't here to talk. They were here to destroy. And there was no turning back. Lucas faces his father and brother, fully aware that the final confrontation has begun, with all his preparations, alliances, and the weight of his grandfather's legacy on the line.